Hello, so for this video I'm going to be doing the Puss in Boots animations, so the idle pose, running, jumping and attack animations. So the first thing you want to do is scope into the puppet logic, remove the microchips you don't need, so follow behavior and level complete, might be some others you don't need, and then go into the poses and you'll see there's a keyframe under idle strength already, so just want to scope into that keyframe and then we can adjust his pose to whatever you want. So I'm gonna have one hand on his hip and the other one with the sword out, or sword on his shoulder, so whenever there's no input from the player now that that's done, we want to go into his running animation next. So you can see in the puppet interface there, its running strength is attached to a keyframe. But what we want to do is put a timeline down, and that way we can do a more detailed animation while he's running. So first thing you want to do is stamp an empty keyframe down. And then L1 and R2 to drag it across and edit the second keyframe. So this is his first part of his run. So we'll move the right leg forward, but as you can see, doesn't look quite right with the joint between the two leg parts. So the best way to do this is to put like a sphere in between them, so it's more of a smooth transition whenever he's moving around. And we have to do some edits to the connectors that are there. So the way to do that is hover over object and then press triangle. You want to make sure it's an X-ray is checked there so that you can select the connector, and you want to put this close to the joint as possible, and then so now it's a little bit better, but you can see a bit of his fur is coming out of his leg, so just do some small adjustments and move the leg around until it's right. And yeah, I'm gonna be editing the sculpts as well, so we can move the orange part and rotate it so it's more inside the boot, so it's not visible when he's running. And then the other thing is we can scope into the sculpt itself and then stamp in like a sphere there. So I've selected the sphere, turn off mirror, match the same color, and then we just want to size it so it looks about right. So you want to press L1 and square to fine tune the shape and reduce the blend to 0, because spheres and sharp sides don't really blend that well. So L1 square, and then make sure it's as close as you can get, and then stamp in place on the right there once it looks alright. So yeah, after that you can press triangle again, and if you want to adjust it some more. So I think it'll be better if that red ring part is shown on the top. Yeah, so I'll just adjust it like that, and you might need to sort of adjust the connectors if there's something funny going on after you're done editing it. Just make sure it's all fully working by dragging the leg around and seeing how it's connected. And then we're just gonna want to do the same to the other leg. So now that the legs are working better and rigged up, we can go back into the timeline and edit that keyframe. So L1 and X onto the keyframe, So actually, I don't want to have empty keyframes at the start and the end. So we'll just make it that he's fully running from the start and the end. The procedural animation will make sure that it's not going to go straight into a running pose as soon as you do it. So as I show you, if you turn off procedural, it doesn't work very well. So keep procedural on, and it's more, looks a bit better, but it still needs a lot of work. His legs, his feet are sort of dragging on the ground. So going back into the running animation, looks like his feet are kind of dragging into the ground a little bit. So we're just going to put an intermediate frame of him. First we'll raise him up, and where he's pushed off the ground, we just want to raise him off the ground a little bit. I find that helps to clear the ground while he's running. And L1 and right on the D-pad will cycle to the next keyframe, and L1 and left will go to the previous keyframe. So it's really useful for this sort of thing. So we'll just make sure So we're just going to make some intermediate keyframes. So where he's in the middle, he's going to be lower to the ground, and he's going to push off to the next keyframe where his legs are apart. So I've just gone and press L1 and right on the D-pad when hovering over the timeline, and it will give a more spaced out look for the timeline, and you can do it frame by frame, so this is good for these sorts of animations. And then just go L1 and right and L1 and left to go cycle between the keyframes and adjust it. Now I just want to add a AND gate, which will make it so the running animation only happens when the puppet's on the ground. So in the puppet interface, somewhere there's an input which indicates when the puppet's on the ground. So you just want to connect that one into the AND gate, as well as the running speed into the other port of the end gate. And so now I just want to add like a little tail animation, so while he's running the tail doesn't just stand frozen. So to do that, you just go back into those running keyframes and can just adjust the tail however, see how it looks. And so lastly, we want to edit the jumping animation. So if you go into the jump animation microchip, there's already keyframes set up for the jump, ascent, peak, and fall. So basically you can just go and edit those ones. It works quite well. So in the jump ascent, I'll just L1X on that keyframe, and I want to edit the tail so it moves in a specific way while it's jumping. And yeah, that's about all we have time for today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one where we'll work on the attack animations.